Ladies and gents, it's Friday lunchtime. It's time to don our finest MAGA caps and, realistically, some anti-toxic protective wear as we dive headfirst into all things Donald Trump. Let's go! Now, Orange Jesus, you may recall, was found liable for having run a years-long financial scam by way of the Trump Organization in New York. Now, the idea was simple. Okay, you just inflate the value of your Trump Tower, or Avenue of the Americas is another big building that Donald Trump owns, so that then the bank would then think that it was sufficient, these properties, to use as collateral, and then they would lend you $30 or $40 million that you could use to, start a sham university, buy yourself a golden escalator, or a Slovenian wife. And then, when it comes to tax time, you tell the IRS that actually these assets are not worth that much, so that then you don't get hit with property taxes and income taxes and some such. You know, it's like, hey, you're rich. You're rich. You don't need to worry about that stuff. You know, let the blue-collar morons pay for all that, you know? You don't even use public services, Donny. They're the ones that need the policemen and a fire service and schools and road repair. Them! They should pay for it. But anyway, yes, hike the values, then tank them a few months later. That was the scam. And anyway, the fine, including back taxes, I guess, but mostly the fine, that was believed to be in the region of $450 million. Yeah. That is a lot of NFTs. But whereas you or I would probably balk or throw up and turn ourselves inside out at such a fine. If I get like £25 fine for, parking on double yellows or whatever, like I'm having to rebudget for the week. I'm like feeding my kids moss and holly leaf soup or something. They're like, oh, Dad, and then I give them Nurofen for their dessert. Anyway, so for us, that would be a catastrophic fine, $450 million. But it shouldn't be a problem for Donald Trump, in theory, right? Because remember that since forever, Donald Trump has claimed to be a billionaire, hasn't he? I don't know if you guys remember all of the talk about how he was self-funding his 2016 campaign, so he wouldn't be in hock to anyone. He couldn't be corrupted by donors, super PACs, drain the swamp, and all of that. Well, then spool forward to it's about 6 months ago now. And his lawyer in the deposition phases, he suggested that Donald Trump had about $400 million in cash accessible, and it was growing every day, right? That's a almost word-for-word quote there. Well, now spool forward to today, to this weekend. And, I remember tweeting, this is about, a month ago now or something, when talk of this fine was really starting to build up. I remember tweeting at that point, I was like, a lot of MAGA nut jobs who are drunk on Orange Jesus are about to find out that their boy Donny is not really a billionaire. Because since that verdict, or that fine was announced, Trump has been scrambling around for that money, and it is due this coming Monday. Okay, $450 million, $500 million. And there's a bunch of ways that he could pay it off, right? If he had liquid cash in the bank, then he could go into court and write them a check. But we know that he doesn't have the liquid cash for this because he's already admitted that he's been negotiating with various loan companies, right? Which brings us on to the second option. If he doesn't have the cash, he could get a loan, couldn't he? to settle the court debt for a little bit. But Trump is somewhat hampered in that because none of them want to lend him the money. Because, frankly, put very simply, he's too high a risk to pass that kind of credit check. Like Donald Trump is known in New York finance, legal, banking circles, property development circles as a guy who starts up businesses and ends up winding them up still owing money. He's known for not paying his contractors. He's known for not paying his legal bills. He's known for living off debt, living off loans. You know, like the idea that they would loan someone like that another $400 million and potentially lose it all, right? That idea, I imagine, is a total non-starter, you know? You put it up to your underwriter and they just look back at you and go like, what is this? No. No. But even if they did entertain the idea, right, that would be a situation in which he would then have to use his properties as collateral, right, for the loan. And then what's going to happen? Like, if he has to use the properties as his collateral, they're just going to ask him how much the properties are worth, aren't they? And how are they going to trust him to say how much these properties are worth when that is exactly the exchange he's been convicted of lying about in this exact case that he now needs the bond money for? You know, it's like, please, can you lend me the money for the bond money? Well, have you got something that you could put up, like, to front the loan? Yeah, all of these hotels and golf courses over here. Okay, how much are they worth? $3 trillion squillion dollars? No. Get out. So he doesn't have the cash, and he can't get a loan. You know, and I can hear some of you probably thinking, you know, well, couldn't he just get Putin to pay it, you know, or Erdogan or Elon Musk or somebody? And the answer to that is quite simple, really. It's a no. He can't get money from certainly adversarial dictators, you know. There are rules and restrictions, kind of sanctions type stuff that would prohibit somebody in that situation from having money from a foreign state, from nefarious individuals. It's just not an avenue that's open to him. And then you've got the billionaires, right? Like Elon Musk or whoever. But I just can't imagine them hedging that amount of money while exposing themselves to the same risks as the loan companies have already assessed and looked at and go like, no. We're not loaning you that amount of money based on fantasy figures and valuations, I'm afraid. So what is he left with? What's his options? The only option left really for Donald Trump at this stage is his assets. You know, we've lost the cash route. We know he doesn't have the liquid cash. We've lost the loans route. Nobody wants to lend him any money. We've lost donations. Nobody could donate a presidential candidate that amount of money and still sit within the parameters of campaign finance laws and democracy laws and that sort of stuff. So that's off the table. All of them are off the table. But he does have properties, guys. So it is possible that he could just rock up to the court with his property portfolio and he could be like, well, you know, you want $450 million? Okay, fine. I've got Mar-a-Lago here for you. I've got Trump Tower. I've got Avenue of the Americas. I got a couple of golf courses around here somewhere. You know, I could use those as collateral while I appeal the whole verdict and hopefully get to keep all of my stuff at the end of that, you know. That could happen, right? It's possible that's where this ends up. But, guys, the problem with that is kind of twofold, right? There are two issues with that process as I could see it. The first one is the most obvious, right? Is that we're kind of back to overvaluing properties, that whole kind of icky situation, potentially, you know, like, it's all right, look, I'll give you a golf course. Well, how much is that worth? Why would the court believe him, right? That kind of situation. But the second issue, to my mind, with this is like, they might have his name on the top of the building, right? They might have portraits of him on the walls in the lobby. But more often than not, Donald Trump is actually not the only stakeholder in those properties, right? That is a fact that seems to escape so many people when they talk about this case and the settlements and the bond and using things as collateral. Like, he might own a penthouse at the top of Trump Tower that's worth like $30 million. But what about the rest of the building? You know? Who are the other stakeholders in that project? Who owns the entire, all of the commercial property? Who has he sold that to? Then there's two other, like, whole commercial properties. The Avenue of the Americas was one of them. They're actually owned by this whole other company called Vornado. It's not even Donald Trump's anymore. Also, when he says, oh, hey, it's okay because I've actually got like $900 million worth of property in this portfolio that I could use. Like, the street value of a couple of those buildings, that might add up to $900 million, right? But I don't think as yet he's agreed to publish all the loans and mortgages that he's taken out on these properties over the last 5 or 10 or 20 years for a guy that lives off debt. Like, even if they were all his, which it is reported that they are not, right? It's reported that he just actually has quite a modest stake in some of these properties. But even if they were 100% in his name, on his balance sheet, is it not a wild assumption to think that he hasn't already taken out loans or mortgages on these assets and therefore diluted the equity, you know, the capital at his disposal? Like, it's like your mum going into the bank, right, and trying to take out a loan that is secured on your house when your dad has already taken out 5 other loans and maxed out your collateral. That is what we're dealing with, potentially, here. So anyway, look, basically this is where we're at, guys, right, is Trump has run out of financial road with regards to this. No one wants to lend to him because they think that he would fail to make good on it, or he'll end up in jail, or they'll be left out of pocket. He doesn't have the liquid cash because he's not a real billionaire, and his property empire is actually probably like very, very complicated and not all his. And probably more likely than not, what we're next going to see with this, where this is headed, is either the New York court who were responsible for taking this money off of him, they will seize his assets. That's probably the next step with him. And then they will fire sale them off until they are satisfied that Donald Trump has paid off this debt. Or they'll force him into bankruptcy, right? And it could reasonably be both of those. Like, they try to go for something and fail, and then they're like, right, forced bankruptcy for you, fella. Which I hope that does happen. I hope they seize his assets off him. I truly hope that happens. Because here's what I actually want to happen, right? I hope they take his Trump Tower and his Mar-a-Lago and off, like, but then I hope front of the queue to buy at rock bottom prices a freshly seized Trump Tower is a consortium of investors led by E. Jean Carroll, right? Just rock up that gold escalator, Gene, with a magnum of champagne, cut open a ribbon. You know, you have like journalists up the front going like, how does it feel, Gene? How's it feel? Are you happy with your new home? Are you? And then I hope she gets all mad sassy about it. I hope she's like, I can't believe what a bargain it was. Honestly, I got it so cheap. Thanks, Donnie. You know, she looks round to the camera, dead-eyed. And she goes like, no, I'd love to stay and chat, I would, but actually, I'm going to go upstairs and celebrate my purchase with it. Look, I've got these Russian ladies behind me. We're going to go up to Trump's old bedroom and we're going to do some wild stuff on his bed sheets. Peace.